Take a deep breath. You made it to the last lesson for 7.1, lesson 14. I'm Kim Klinko, Open Syed teacher and facilitator. This is the Taj Mahal transfer task, and it's a fun assessment. Trust me, you'll see. Our last lesson about odors answered all, or mostly all, of the questions students had from the driving questions board. All that's left is to see if we can use everything we've learned in this unit and apply it to a new phenomenon. There is a hands-on portion to the assessment that does require a setup. We'll talk about that in a little bit. On day one, we'll introduce the context for our new phenomenon, the Taj Mahal. Students will take part 1 of 2 of the assessment, and then they'll clean up after their investigation. On day 2, you'll go over options for the students. There are 2 parts to part 2 that they might take. Students will complete part 2 of the assessment, and then you'll reflect on norms and, of course, celebrate accomplishments. Students will be planning and carrying out an investigation to help determine that a chemical reaction occurs when malic acid, algae, and water combined on the Taj Mahal. Algae is on the surface of the Taj Mahal, and that is causing a chemical reaction to break down the marble that the Taj Mahal is made out of. So let's break down this assessment. It's a big one. On day 1, part 2, you're going to be passing out the assessment, part 1. You'll give students a brief introduction to the overall format of the test. This might be the first time students complete a transfer task such as this, and so depending on your population, you might want to take a minute to explain what that is. This assessment is done in steps that students work through to carry out an investigation with calcium carbonate and malic acid to collect evidence about one thing that's happening to the marble on the Taj Mahal. Here in part 2 of the lesson is when you distribute the test to the students and complete part 1. It begins with a background reading about the marble at the Taj Mahal, that it's made of calcium carbonate and it's going through a chemical reaction. There are 2 possible substances the calcium carbonate is interacting with, either acid rain or algae, causing the marble to break down. You don't need to go over all of the steps for the investigation, as you're actually assessing the SEP, plan and carry out an investigation here. But you will need to provide directions to your student for where to get supplies from and where they can carry out their investigation, and where students should clean up and return used supplies. Students will be combining calcium carbonate, water, and malic acid. Malic acid is the substance in the algae that reacts with the calcium carbonate to create a new substance that's evidenced by both odor as well as bubbles, just like our bath bombs. The teacher materials provide a key for you to be able to grade this assessment, and we'll talk a little bit more about some tips and tricks. Part 5 happens on day 2. Students will have a choice here for how to explain the marble changes in the Taj Mahal. They don't necessarily need part 1 to be graded in order to complete part 2. So for part 2, they have a choice between completing part 2A or part 2B. 2A is a challenging set of modeling and explanation tasks that revolve around trying to explain further what's happening to the marble in the Taj Mahal and advising the Indian government on what pollutants might be responsible for this. While part 2B is a little more challenging, it's a set of modeling and explanation tasks that revolve around trying to explain what's happening to the iron rods and clamps that are being used to hold the marble together. So the idea behind the choice here is to support Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, Providing students the opportunity to choose the level of perceived challenge can help support their engagement and help develop self-determination, pride in their accomplishments, and increase the degree to which they feel connected to their learning. We'll talk a little bit more in tips and tricks about this assessment as well. Okay, so let's break this down. Day 1, part 1 of the assessment. You're going to want to plan ahead of time how you want to manage materials. All of the students are going to be testing the same substances here, so I would personally recommend them doing this in small groups of 3 to 4 as opposed to individually. It may be helpful to have a bin or a wastebasket set aside for students to empty the contents of the mixtures. The solids that are not soluble should obviously not be put down in the sink. I try to have enough materials for all sections on one tray and then one tray per table. This way there's less to worry about in between classes. I also label the cups with the different mixes so they can be reused from class to class and you don't have to worry about cross-contamination and a little less of setup cleanup here. You can see a little bit of that in the picture on the screen right now. So that means 1 cup of water, 1 of calcium carbonate, 1 of water and malic acid, 1 with water and calcium carbonate, another with malic acid and calcium carbonate, and then the water, calcium carbonate, and malic acid. Depending on the kit you get, you should be getting malic acid that comes in a capsule with the powder that's easy for the students to pull apart and get the malic acid, that powder, out. I also tell my students to not only look for bubbles, but to remember odor. They often forget this, and it's a key to figuring out the chemical reaction here. If students are struggling with particular items on part 1, when you start to grade this assessment or look through their answers, there is an item alignment guide in the materials that you can help identify related items on part 2A and B of this test, depending on which one, obviously, the students chose. And that can be helped used for supporting relearning or mastery learning. Each item on the assessment has been aligned with different parts of the performance expectations, so part 2A or B can be used as a reassessment as well. As I stated, part 2B is slightly more challenging than part 2A, and when students are making a choice here, you have some options as well. You can have all students complete part 2A and use part 2B as a reassessment if needed. You can decide ahead of time who of your students will be getting A or B based on your student population, rather than giving them the choice or option. You can also have all students complete part 1, grade those, and then use part 2 as a reassessment if it's required. Or you can just do it as intended and have students complete part 1 and then choose part 2A or B the next day. You know your students best, and that's, I think, the bottom line here. My students personally tend to take a long time to complete an assessment, and we only have 45-minute periods. So I end up splitting part 1 into 2 days. This gives them enough time to really do the hands-on investigation part and clean up, of course. There are assessment keys for all of the parts that will help you in grading. However, how you score and assign a grade for the assessments is entirely up to you. I would also, if you have time, check the Facebook pages for some other helpful tricks on this assessment. There are no new words here and no new posters added. Woohoo! You did it! Celebrate! This is the end of Unit 7.1. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. My students really do love this unit. Thank you.